Rain hammered downtown Portland that Tuesday afternoon, November 3rd, turning glass towers into blurred monuments of wealth Delaney Brooks would never possess. She stood outside Pemberton and Associates clutching a broken umbrella, water soaking through canvas shoes that were splitting at the seams. 8 months pregnant, $18.40 in her bank account, and an eviction notice giving her 4 days to vacate the apartment where she and Garrett had planned to raise their child. The law office smelled of leather and old money when she pushed through the revolving door. Places like this existed in a different universe from hers, one where people discussed estates instead of overdue rent, where inheritance meant security instead of desperation. The elevator climbed 14 floors in silence, heavy enough to feel. At the end of a portrait-lined hallway, the conference room waited with its mahogany table polished to mirror shine and windows overlooking a city she could no longer afford. They were already seated. Sterling Ashford commanded the head of the table in a Brioni suit worth more than Delaney had earned in her last year of teaching. 42 Harvard, MBA face made for boardrooms, and a smile that calculated profit margins instead of expressing joy. He checked his Rolex as she entered, not bothering with eye contact. Vivian Ashford sat beside him. Sterling's wife of 8 years, her Hermes scarf knotted with the casual precision of someone who'd never questioned whether she could afford groceries. She glanced at Delaney with the assessment women make when determining threat levels, concluded the answer was none, and returned to her phone. Aunt Constance occupied the opposite end, 68, and brittle fingers heavy with rings that predated the Great Depression. She looked at Delaney the way one might regard something unpleasant tracked in from the street. "Mr. Pemberton," rose a man in his mid-60s with skin like aged parchment and eyes that had witnessed too many families destroy themselves over money. He gestured to the empty chair. Delaney sat the leather cold through her faded dress. Pemberton opened a manila folder thick with documentation. The room settled into silence that precedes life-changing revelations. His voice carried no emotion as he read the first bequest. Sterling received $15 million in diversified stock portfolios, plus the Bellevue estate, 6 bedrooms waterfront, another $3 million in current market value. Sterling's smile widened with entitled satisfaction. Vivian received the corporate art collection, 4 decades of accumulated pieces currently valued at just under $3 million. She nodded as if confirming her worth. Constance received a trust fund generating $200,000 annually, managed professionally, guaranteed for life. Her lips pressed into thin approval. Then Pemberton's gaze found Delaney. Something flickered across his face. Sympathy. Warning. The pause stretched longer than comfortable. "To my nephew-in-law's widow, Delaney Brooks, I leave the property located at 1847 Timber Ridge Road, colloquially known as the Shack, including all structures, contents, and mineral rights thereon." Absolute silence. 3 seconds of held breath. Then Sterling laughed, a snort of disbelief that grew into full-bodied amusement, echoing off mahogany walls. His hand slapped the table like a gunshot. The Shack. He left her the Shack. "Oh my God, that's actually perfect." Vivian's smile cut like razors. 4 acres of unusable slope, Sterling. Rocky ground, no timber value, can't even get logging equipment up there. That property has negative worth when you factor in taxes. Delaney's hands clenched in her lap. The baby kicked hard, pressing against her ribs. Constance leaned forward, dripping false concern. "You'll freeze to death by Christmas, dear. That cabin hasn't had electricity since Reagan was president. No water, no heat, barely a road. It's condemned, really. We tried having the county seize it for back taxes years ago." Sterling wiped moisture from his eyes, still grinning. "Pemberton, did Uncle Callum seriously give this woman a rotting shack while the rest of us received actual assets? Was he senile at the end?" Pemberton's expression remained neutral. "Callum Ashford was of sound mind when he executed this will 3 months ago. I was present. He knew exactly what he was doing. But why?" Vivian gestured at Delaney with manicured dismissal. "She's not even family." "Not really. Garrett was barely an Ashford half-brother, different mother, raised elsewhere. And he's been dead 6 months." Sterling's amusement hardened into calculation. He studied Delaney like something under glass. "You know what property taxes run on that land? $2,200 annually, due in 6 weeks. Can you afford that? Because I'm guessing you can't even afford next month's rent." Heat rose in Delaney's chest, shame and fury mixing into something that burned. She met Sterling's eyes and held them. The baby kicked again harder, sensing hostility. Pemberton slid a heavy iron key across polished mahogany along with a smaller magnetic fob. The key looked ancient, hand-forged, belonging to locks made before mass production. The fob was modern black plastic, incongruous beside rusted iron. An envelope accompanied them. Cream paper, expensive stock, sealed with red wax. Her name written in spidery handwriting she recognized from birthday cards Garrett used to receive when Uncle Callum still remembered. Delaney took both keys and envelope. The iron was surprisingly heavy, cold in her palm. Sterling stood abruptly, buttoning his jacket with sharp precision. "Well, this has been educational. Pemberton stock certificates to my office by Friday. Vivian, call the estate agent about Bellevue updates before we list." He paused at the door, turning back with an expression that might have been pity if his eyes held anything human. "When you're ready to be reasonable, call me. I'll offer $5,000 for that property. Cash. More than it's worth. Consider it charity for Garrett's sake." The door closed softly. Constance followed without speaking, rings catching fluorescent light. Their footsteps faded down expensive hallways. Pemberton gathered documents with practiced efficiency. "Callum left specific instructions that you receive that envelope privately. I've fulfilled my obligation. If you need anything further, my card is attached." Then she was alone in a room that cost more per hour than she'd made in weeks, staring at an envelope holding answers she wasn't sure she wanted. Her hands trembled, breaking the wax seal. Inside, a single folded page. Handwriting shaky but legible, written by someone whose body failed while his mind stayed sharp. Delaney. "The world judges by appearances. The Ashfords judge by bank statements. You asked me at Garrett's funeral if I had regrets. You asked about my life, not my portfolio. That's why you get the cabin. Start with the floor. Don't trust Sterling, he's far smarter than he pretends. The foundation is stronger than the walls." C.A. She read it 3 times, searching for meaning between words. Start with the floor. What did that mean? And why warn her about Sterling specifically? Her phone buzzed. Text from her landlord. "Final notice. Vacate by Friday or I file eviction." 4 days. She had 4 days to find somewhere to live with $18 and a condemned cabin in the mountains and a cryptic note from a dead man. Delaney stood on unsteady legs and walked to the window. 14 stories below, Portland conducted business in the rain. People with jobs and homes rushed between buildings, umbrellas blooming against gray concrete. The baby shifted lower, preparing for birth, maybe 3 weeks away if doctors were right. She pressed one hand against cold glass. There was nowhere else. No family to call, no friends with spare rooms, no options except sleeping in her car until the baby came. The women's shelter had a 6-week waiting list. She folded the letter carefully. The key and fob went into her purse among the debris of a disintegrating life. Rain still fell when she stepped outside. Her broken umbrella was useless. Water soaked through her dress within seconds, plastering hair to her scalp, running down her neck in cold streams. The Honda Civic was parked 3 blocks away. She couldn't afford garage rates. By the time she reached it, she was shivering. The engine turned over on the 3rd try, coughing to life with sounds suggesting its days were numbered. Gas gauge quarter tank. GPS showed a route to 1847 Timber Ridge Road, 4 hours 12 minutes northeast into Cascade Mountains, where cell service died and civilization thinned to nothing. She sat in the driver's seat, water dripping onto worn upholstery, and opened the letter one final time. Start with the floor. The foundation is stronger than the walls. The baby kicked question or demand. "Okay, little one, let's see what Uncle Callum left us." The drive out of Portland took her through suburbs that gradually thinned into farmland, then forests so dense they blocked weak afternoon sun. Highway became state routes, 2-lane roads curving through valleys where mist clung to earth like something alive. She passed towns with populations under 500, gas stations unchanged since the 70s, hand-painted signs advertising firewood and fresh eggs. Her phone lost signal around the 2-hour mark. GPS died 10 minutes later, leaving her with printed directions Pemberton had included. Turn right at mile marker 47. Continue 3.6 miles. Left onto unmarked gravel road. Pavement ended without warning, replaced by gravel pinging against the Honda's undercarriage. The road, if it could be called that, was two ruts separated by grass that scraped the car's underside. Branches reached from both sides, skeletal fingers scratching windows. Delaney drove slowly, hands tight on the wheel, feeling every rock through the steering column. Trees pressed closer, towering Douglas firs and cedars blocking remaining light. It felt like driving into somewhere the world had forgotten. The cabin appeared without warning, materializing from mist like a nightmare made solid. Sterling's description hadn't been exaggeration. If anything, he'd been kind. The structure sagged in the middle like something dying. The roof dipped dangerously, covered by torn blue tarp exposing rotted shingles beneath. Weathered gray siding was warped and split boards hanging loose from rusted nails. Graffiti marked the front, "Condemned 2019." The porch had partially collapsed on one side. The corner post snapped and leaning 45 degrees. Stairs were missing 2 treads. Weeds grew waist-high, choking what might once have been a garden. Windows were broken dark holes like empty eye sockets. The door hung crooked in its frame. This wasn't a cabin. It was a corpse no one had bothered to bury. Delaney's hands trembled on the wheel. The baby kicked hard enough to steal her breath. She pressed both palms against her belly, feeling foot or elbow push against skin. I know this is bad, but we don't have anywhere else." She sat for 10 minutes, unable to move, watching mist curl through broken windows. Trees were massive, centuries old, their canopy so thick that even at 3 p.m. the light was dim and green. Somewhere in those trees a raven called, lonely and harsh. Finally, because there was no other choice, Delaney opened the car door. The air was different here, cleaner, sharper, carrying scents of pine needles and damp earth. Cold, too, even in early November. She wrapped her cardigan tighter and navigated overgrown path toward the porch. Stairs creaked under her weight. She tested each one before committing, feeling wood flex and groan. The railing wobbled when she grabbed at posts loose in sockets. She was reaching for the door when a voice stopped her. "Wouldn't trust that if I were you. Whole thing's ready to come down." Delaney spun, heart hammering. A man stood at the clearing's edge, leaning on a walking stick. 60-something, maybe older, wearing flannel and canvas work pants held by suspenders. His face was weathered, lined deep by sun and wind and time. A border collie sat at his feet, watching with intelligent eyes. "I didn't mean to startle you." The man's voice was rough from disuse. "I'm Fletcher Dalton. I live about a quarter mile that way." He gestured with the stick toward dense trees. "Saw a car come up. Nobody's been here since Callum passed." Delaney's hand pressed against her chest, feeling her heart race. "I'm Delaney Brooks. I inherited this place." Fletcher's eyebrows rose. "Callum left you this?" He looked from her pregnant belly to the sagging cabin and back. "That old fox. He always said he'd find the right person. You knew him." Fletcher nodded slowly. "Knew him 40 years. We worked together before either of us got old. He moved up here when he retired, spent most of his time alone. Liked it that way." The border collie stood and walked to Delaney, sniffing her shoes. She reached down carefully, letting the dog smell her hand before scratching behind its ears. "That's Ranger." Fletcher watched with an unreadable expression. "Callum paid me to keep an eye on this place after he went into hospice. Keep wildlife out, make sure nobody came poking around. Not that there's much to poke at." Delaney looked back at the cabin. "Is it as bad inside as it looks outside?" "Worse, probably." Fletcher moved closer, studying the structure with critical eyes. "Roof's been leaking 3 years. Stove's rusted through. Caught in there's got mice living in it. Haven't had running water since the pump died in, when was it, 97 maybe?" She felt tears prick but blinked them back. "I don't have anywhere else. The landlord's evicting me Friday. This is it." Fletcher was quiet for a long moment, his gaze moving from her face to her belly to the cabin. "How far along?" 8 months. Due around Christmas." He muttered something under his breath that might have been curse or prayer. "All right. Listen, I got a woodpile back at my place and a generator that still runs. I can bring supplies up, get that stove working at minimum. Can't have you freezing to death on my watch. I can't pay you." Delaney's voice cracked. "I don't have money for—" "Did I ask for payment?" Fletcher's tone was sharp. "Callum was my friend. I gave him my word I'd look after this place. That includes whoever he left it to." He turned and walked back toward trees, Ranger following at his heels. "I'll be back in an hour with firewood and tools. Try not to fall through the floor before then." Delaney watched him disappear into forest, his flannel shirt visible between trees until distance and mist swallowed him. Then she turned back to the cabin, to the door hanging crooked, and pulled the iron key from her purse. It fit the lock perfectly, sliding into mechanism with smooth precision of something recently oiled. The lock turned with a heavy click that echoed louder than it should. She pushed the door open. It groaned on rusted hinges, swinging inward to reveal darkness. Smell hit her first, mold and dust and something animal, scent of abandonment and decay. Delaney stepped over the threshold, feeling the floor shift slightly. Boards creaked. Somewhere in darkness, something skittered away. Light filtered through broken windows, dim and green, illuminating a single room, maybe 15 by 20 feet. Cast iron stove sat center, surface orange with rust. A cot occupied one corner, mattress stained and torn, stuffing visible through mouse-chewed holes. Newspapers were stacked everywhere against walls, on furniture, and towers reaching toward the sagging ceiling. She walked to the nearest stack and picked up the top paper. The Seattle Times, March 1987. The next June, 1989. All decades old, brittle with age. In the room's center, positioned directly before where a fireplace must have once been, lay a braided rug. Filthy, covered in dust and soot, but underneath the grime she could see colors, blues and greens in intricate patterns. "Start with the floor." Delaney knelt carefully, pregnant belly making the movement awkward. She grabbed the rug's edge and pulled. It was heavier than expected fabric, thick despite age. She dragged it aside inch by inch, revealing wooden planks beneath. The floor looked ordinary at first. Wide pine boards, rough-hewn, darkened with age and dirt. But as her eyes adjusted, she noticed something wrong. Most boards ran parallel east to west, but in the center, directly where the rug had been, there was a 4-foot square section where boards ran perpendicular, and the seam around that section was too precise, too clean-cut recently rather than installed a century ago. She ran fingers along the edge, feeling for gap or handle. Nothing. The surface was smooth, flush with surrounding floor. Then she remembered the magnetic fob. Delaney pulled it from her purse, turning it over. About the size of a silver dollar, flat black plastic with no markings. She'd assumed it was for a garage door or security system, something modern that made no sense with an abandoned cabin. She pressed it against the square section's center. The response was immediate. A mechanical click echoed from below, followed by soft hissing of releasing pressure. The entire 4-foot square popped up 2 inches, lifted by what sounded like hydraulics. Delaney scrambled backward, heart pounding. This wasn't possible. This cabin was supposed to be abandoned, condemned, forgotten. There shouldn't be hydraulics. There shouldn't be anything that worked. She waited, listening. The hissing stopped. The square section remained elevated, waiting. Slowly, carefully, she crawled forward and hooked fingers under the lip. The section lifted smoothly on gas struts, the same kind used on car hoods, revealing a staircase below. Not a ladder, not rough-hewn steps to a root cellar, but a staircase made of steel and concrete descending into darkness, immediately swallowed by motion-activated LED lights flickering to life. Delaney sat back on her heels, staring down into a corridor that shouldn't exist. The lights revealed smooth concrete walls, professional construction, modern engineering buried beneath a cabin that looked like it hadn't seen maintenance since before she was born. The baby kicked hard, rolling movement that felt like protest or warning. "I know this is crazy, but we need to see." She maneuvered herself carefully over the edge, finding the first step with her foot. Steel was solid, anchored deep into concrete. She descended slowly, one hand on railing, the other pressed against the wall for balance. Her breath came quick and shallow, the air down here noticeably cooler and cleaner than the dusty cabin above. The steel door was thick, institutional, the kind found in banks or government buildings. A small security camera was mounted above it, red light blinking slowly. Active, recording. She pushed the door fully open and stepped through into a room that stopped her breathing. It was an office. No, a command center. 20 by 30 feet, perfectly climate-controlled, air smelling faintly of ozone and lemon. 3 workstations lined one wall, glass desks holding 9 flat-screen monitors, currently dark. Server racks hummed along the far wall. Indicator lights blinking patterns suggesting active processing. Bookshelves covered another wall filled with technical manuals, coding books, and leather-bound journals. A kitchenette occupied one corner. Sink, small refrigerator, microwave, all modern, all spotless. In the opposite corner, a door stood open, revealing a bathroom. Delaney could see toilet, sink, and shower stall, all contemporary fixtures, looking like they'd been installed within the last decade. The room's center held a massive leather office chair, the kind costing thousands of dollars, positioned before the 3 workstations. Everything was powered, everything was clean, everything was waiting. Callum built this. The thought seemed impossible, but evidence surrounded her. Her husband's eccentric uncle, the man everyone dismissed as senile and strange, had constructed an underground facility belonging in spy thrillers, not beneath rotting cabins in Oregon wilderness. Delaney walked to the workstations and sank into the leather chair. It fit her perfectly, ergonomics designed for comfort during long hours. Her hand brushed the mouse without thinking. All 9 monitors came to life simultaneously, bathing the room in cold blue light. No password prompt, no security screen, just a desktop with organized folders and a single video file paused at its starting frame. The thumbnail showed Callum Ashford sitting in this very chair, wearing a dark sweater, holding a glass of what looked like scotch. He appeared younger than she remembered, healthier, his eyes sharp and focused. The timestamp in the corner read June 2024, 5 months before his death. Her finger hovered over the play button. Whatever was on this video would change everything. She could feel it in the moment's weight, in servers' hum, in the way concrete walls seemed to press closer. The baby kicked again, softer. A question more than protest. Delaney clicked play. Callum's voice filled the room through hidden speakers, clear and strong, nothing like the wheeze she remembered from the nursing home. "Hello, Delaney. If you're watching this, 2 things are true. First, I'm dead. Second, and more importantly, the vultures didn't burn the shack before you found this place." "Good." He took a sip of scotch, his eyes finding the camera with unsettling directness, as if seeing through time to this exact moment. "You're confused right now, probably scared, about to have a baby in what looks like a condemned building, but I need you to listen very carefully to everything I'm about to tell you before you do anything rash." He set the glass down and leaned forward. "Sterling Ashford is not the fool he pretends to be. He's brilliant, Harvard-educated, patient, and absolutely ruthless. He will figure out that this cabin contains something valuable. When he does, he will come for it. And if you're not prepared, he will take everything and leave you with nothing." The image of Callum paused, then continued. "Let me tell you a story about Ashford Industries. In 1989, I developed a logistics management system called ALMS, Ashford Logistics Management System. It revolutionized how the company tracked shipments, managed inventory, optimized routes, made them tens of millions over the years. Sterling thinks the company owns ALMS. He's wrong. I licensed it to them on annual auto-renewal. The license renewed automatically every November 15th, except this year it won't, because the license was tied to my life, and I'm no longer alive." Delaney's hands gripped the armrests. "Without ALMS, Ashford Industries stops functioning. 400 trucks can't route. 80 cargo ships can't navigate. 12 warehouses can't process orders. The company loses approximately $18 million every day the system is down. And you, Delaney, now own the intellectual property, because the license agreement states ownership passes to whoever owns the property at 1847 Timber Ridge Road. That's you." The camera zoomed slightly, Callum's face filling the frame. "But that's not all. This worthless rocky slope Sterling thinks is an embarrassment. I had it surveyed in 1996. There's a lithium, cesium, tantalum, pegmatite vein running through this ridge. High-grade ore, easily accessible with underground mining techniques. The total value of lithium deposits in the ground at current battery market prices is conservatively $55 to $70 million. Delaney couldn't breathe. The numbers were too large, too impossible. But the servers hummed, the monitors glowed, the concrete walls were solid. "I've been lying to the family about this land for 30 years, Callum continued. Told them it was worthless, inaccessible, a waste of money. They believed me because I was the eccentric uncle, the weird programmer who lived in the woods. They underestimated me, just like they're going to underestimate you." He reached off camera and held up a blue folder. This is your insurance policy. Inside this folder, which you'll find in the file labeled Evidence on the desktop, is documentation of every illegal thing Sterling and Vivian have done for the past 25 years. Tax evasion, bribery of county officials, safety violations that resulted in workplace deaths. His expression darkened, including the equipment failure that killed Garrett. The world tilted. Delaney gripped the desk nails, digging into glass. Your husband's death wasn't an accident, Delaney. Sterling cut the industrial safety budget by 70% to boost quarterly profits. The crane that killed Garrett was due for replacement 2 years before the accident. The inspections were falsified. I have the emails. I have the wire transfers. I have everything. Garrett died so Sterling could report better earnings to the board and collect a larger bonus. Tears blurred her vision. She'd known somewhere deep that the accident wasn't just bad luck. The insurance company's reluctance to pay the company's quick settlement, offer the way Sterling had avoided her at the funeral, it had all pointed to something darker. Now she had proof. Callum's voice softened. I know this is overwhelming. I know you're scared and broke and about to have a baby alone. But you're stronger than Sterling thinks. Stronger than the whole family realizes. You asked me at Garrett's funeral if I had regrets, not about my wealth or my career, about my life, about whether I'd lived it right. No one else in that family has ever asked me anything that real. That's why I chose you. Because you see people, not portfolios. Because you're kind without being weak. Because when the world knocked Garrett down, you stood beside him instead of running. He raised the Scotch glass. This bunker is fully stocked. Food, water, medical supplies, baby formula, everything you need for 6 months. There's a panic button under the desk that connects directly to FBI Portland. Use it only when you have Sterling cornered with evidence. Don't go to the police yet. He owns them. Don't try to hire lawyers. You have no money for good ones. Instead, be the cabin. Let Sterling think you're struggling, defeated, desperate. Make him so confident that he stops being careful. When he makes his move, and he will, that's when you strike. The video showed Callum standing, raising his glass toward the camera. Give my great-nephew the life we should have given Garrett. Show Sterling that what's built in darkness can outlast what's built on lies. Welcome to the war, Delaney Brooks. The screen went black. She sat in silence, servers hum the only sound. The baby moved inside her, gentle rolling that felt like reassurance or sympathy. Everything she'd believed about her situation had just shattered. She wasn't a destitute widow with no options. She was sitting on leverage worth tens of millions and evidence that could destroy a powerful man. But Callum was right. Sterling was dangerous. If he discovered what she had before she was ready, he'd crush her with lawyers and money and influence. She needed to be smart, patient, strategic. Delaney opened the folder labeled Evidence on the desktop. It contained hundreds of files meticulously organized by year and category. She clicked on the subfolder marked Garrett Accident Analysis. Inside were emails, maintenance reports, budget spreadsheets. She opened the first email, dated 3 months before Garrett's death, from Sterling to the Industrial Safety Director. Cut safety equipment budget by 70%. Inspections will be handled through Thompson's firm. They're more flexible about timelines. File attached budget shows quarterly savings of $400,000. Another email from Vivian to an inspector named Thompson. Equipment number 447 needs sign-off by Friday for quarterly report. Payment of $25,000 attached. Please confirm receipt and approval. Equipment number 447. She remembered that number from the accident report. The crane, the one that had failed and crushed her husband while he was wiring a control panel. She opened payment records. $25,000 transferred from a shell company in the Cayman Islands to an account registered to Thompson Industrial Certification Services. The date was 1 week before the inspection that cleared the crane for continued use. The inspection that should have condemned it. Delaney's hands shook as she closed the files. Sterling had murdered Garrett as surely as if he'd sabotaged the crane himself. Traded her husband's life for $400,000 in quarterly savings and a performance bonus. She thought about Sterling's smile in the law office, his casual cruelty. The way he'd offered her $5,000 for this property, knowing it was worth millions, knowing he'd killed her husband, knowing she had nowhere else to go. The rage that filled her was cold and sharp and absolute. Behind the leather chair she noticed another door. She stood and walked to it, pulled it open. Inside was a pantry shelves stocked with freeze-dried meals, canned goods, bottled water, medical supplies. Another shelf held baby formula diapers in multiple sizes, infant clothes still in packages. Callum had thought of everything. He'd built this place not just to trap Sterling, but to give her resources to survive the war. She found the bathroom fully functional, turned on the faucet, and watched clean water flow. Hot water, even. A geothermal system, probably, or solar panels hidden somewhere on the property. In the server room, she found the control panel Callum had mentioned. The ALMS system was there, green lights indicating active status. According to the display, the next auto-renewal was scheduled for November 15th, 12 days away. A manual override switch sat beside the automatic renewal. She could shut down the system right now, cripple Ashford Industries immediately. But Callum's warning echoed, "Don't be obvious, make Sterling confident. Let him think he's hunting wounded prey." A note was taped to the control panel in Callum's handwriting. "Don't shut down yet. Let them get desperate. Negotiate from strength." Delaney climbed back to the cabin as sun was setting, painting sky orange and purple through broken windows. Fletcher had returned while she was below, leaving a stack of firewood on the porch along with a box of supplies, matches, kindling, canned soup, a battery-powered lantern. A note was scrawled on the box, "Back tomorrow with generator, stay warm, F." She built a fire in the rusted stove, surprised when it drew properly despite its appearance. Heat pushed back the cold, creating a small circle of warmth in failing light. She ate soup straight from the can, too exhausted to care about plates or spoons. That night she slept in the bunker. The leather chair reclined more comfortable than any bed she'd had in months. She locked the steel door, checked the panic button location, and let herself rest for the first time since Garrett died. In darkness, surrounded by humming servers and quiet certainty of Callum's planning, Delaney Brooks made her decision. She would play Sterling's game, be the desperate widow, the easy mark, the woman with no options. She would let him think he was winning right up until the moment she took everything away from him. For Garrett, for the baby growing inside her, for every person Sterling had crushed on his way to the top. Tomorrow the war would begin. Morning came through broken windows in shafts of cold November light. Delaney woke in the bunker's leather chair, stiff and disoriented servers humming their mechanical lullaby. The baby was quiet, settled low in her pelvis in a way that made walking uncomfortable. 3 weeks, maybe less, before everything changed again. She climbed the steel stairs to find Fletcher on the porch unloading equipment from a battered pickup. A portable generator sat beside a 5-gallon gas can. Tools were arranged in neat rows, hammer saw-level boxes of nails. He looked up as she emerged, his weathered face unreadable. "Brought what I could spare. Won't make this place livable, but it'll keep you from dying." His eyes moved to her belly, then away, something like worry crossing his features. "You planning to have that baby up here, hospitals in Portland? 4 hours if roads are clear." Delaney pulled her cardigan tighter against wind. "I can make it when the time comes. You got anybody to drive you?" She didn't answer. Fletcher grunted, hauling the generator onto the porch with surprising strength for his age. "We'll figure it out. First thing's getting heat and light sorted. Can't have you stumbling around in the dark with a belly that size." He worked through the morning hands, competent and sure. The generator roared to life on the third pull, settling into steady rumble that made the porch vibrate. He ran extension cord through the broken window, tested the lantern, nodded with satisfaction. "That'll give you 4 hours on a tank. Ration it mornings and evenings. Keep the gas can full and you'll survive." Delaney watched him work, noting military precision and how he organized tools, economy of his movements. "You said you and Callum worked together." "What kind of work?" Fletcher paused, considering how much to say. "Army Corps of Engineers, 1970s mostly. Built things in places where building shouldn't be possible. Bunkers, bridges, underground facilities." Understanding clicked into place. "You helped him build it. The room under the cabin." His silence was confirmation. After a moment he straightened, meeting her eyes directly. "Callum paid me well to keep my mouth shut. That arrangement extends to you now. Whatever's down there, it's your business. But if you need help defending it, you come find me." "Why would I need to defend anything?" Fletcher's expression hardened. because Sterling Ashford drove up here 2 days before Callum died, offering me $10,000 to tell him what was inside this cabin. I told him there was nothing but trash and old newspapers. He didn't believe me. After Fletcher left, Delaney spent the day performing the role Callum had written. She dragged newspapers out to the porch in armloads, creating the appearance of cleaning. She swept floors with Fletcher's broom, making clouds of dust visible through broken windows. Anyone watching, and she had to assume someone was, would see exactly what Sterling expected: a desperate woman trying to make an uninhabitable space livable. But when night fell and she returned to the bunker, Delaney became someone else. She spent hours studying the ALMS system, learning its architecture, understanding the leverage Callum had engineered. The software was elegant, complex, irreplaceable. 35 years of refinement had made it the nervous system of Ashford Industries. The license renewal date glowed on the control panel: November 15th, midnight. 12 days away. She found Callum's burner phone in a desk drawer with a single contact saved: FBI Portland Field Office Agent Lisa Torres. A note was paper-clipped to it: only use when you have him cornered. Not yet. She needed Sterling to reveal himself completely. On November 6th, she drove the Honda down the mountain to Timber Falls, a cluster of buildings, population 400. The general store had a bulletin board thick with local notices. She wrote an advertisement on an index card: 4 acres, timber, selective logging, Oregon mountains, owner motivated. Added her burner number. The man behind the counter, 70 if he was a day, squinted at the card. You the new owner up at the Ashford place? Word traveled fast in small towns. Yes, just inherited it. Callum was a good man, kept to himself, but fair. The old man pinned her card to the board. Timber's not worth much these days, but somebody might take you up on it. Watch out for lowballers. November 8th, her phone rang. A logging company out of Eugene offered $8,000 for selective harvest rights, 12-month contract. She negotiated to $10,000 cash on signing. They met at a coffee shop, and she walked out with a cashier's check that felt like lifeline and trap simultaneously. $10,000. Enough to survive 2 months if she was careful. Enough to make Sterling think she was scraping by, selling assets piece by piece. She deposited the check at a Eugene bank, withdrew $500 cash, bought a prepaid credit card with another $500. The rest went into a safety deposit box along with encrypted USB drives containing copies of the most damaging evidence, insurance in case the bunker was compromised. Back at the cabin, she used cash for necessities: propane for Fletcher's camp stove, bulk rice and beans, prenatal vitamins. Used maternity clothes at a thrift store, drab and shapeless, the uniform of poverty. Every purchase calculated to maintain the illusion. Fletcher visited every other day, bringing venison jerky, checking the generator, teaching her to split firewood despite her protests about pregnancy. He never asked about the bunker directly, but his eyes sometimes drifted to the cabin's center, to where the rug lay precisely over the trapdoor. On November 10th, he arrived with news that changed the game. Black SUV's been parked on Forest Road 28 for 3 days. Same spot, different vehicle each day. Someone's watching you, Sterling. Who else has reason to? Fletcher's jaw was tight. Saw movement in the trees yesterday, too. Professional surveillance, not some lost hunter. Delaney's hands went cold despite fire crackling in the stove. What should I do? Nothing. Let them watch. They'll see exactly what Callum wanted: a woman barely surviving, no threat to anyone. Fletcher leaned against the doorframe, posture deceptively casual. But be careful what you do above ground. Whatever's in that bunker stays secret. That night in the bunker, Delaney made her first strategic move. She didn't shut down ALMS, too obvious, too aggressive. Instead, she accessed the system's core parameters and found processing speed controls. The software was designed to handle millions of calculations per second, routing shipments across global supply chains in real time. She throttled it to 15% capacity. Not a shutdown, just a slowdown that would feel like the system was dying gradually, inexplicably. Ships taking longer to dock because GPS routing calculations lagged. Trucks missing delivery windows because optimal routes took hours instead of seconds. Warehouse systems timing out, forcing manual processing. Death by 1,000 cuts. She hit execute and watched logs update. Across the country, Ashford Industries infrastructure began crawling instead of running. Let Sterling think it's system failure. Let him panic. November 11th, news of Ashford Industries' technical crisis hit financial blogs. Stock down 8% on unexplained logistics delays. Trade publications speculated about system failures, outdated infrastructure, cybersecurity breaches. Sterling issued a statement blaming routine maintenance and promising resolution within 48 hours. Delaney read the articles on her burner phone and smiled. November 13th, Sterling came. She was splitting kindling on the porch when the Range Rover appeared through trees, moving slowly over rutted track. The vehicle was absurdly out of place, $100,000 of luxury engineering navigating terrain meant for trucks. It stopped beside her Honda and Sterling emerged wearing a camel hair coat, probably costing more than she'd made in 6 months. He surveyed the cabin with undisguised disgust, gaze moving from sagging roof to broken windows to collapsed porch corner. "My God, Delaney, you're actually living here?" She set down the hatchet, wiping hands on jeans. "What do you want Sterling to help?" He moved closer, picking his way around mud puddles in designer boots, completely inappropriate for terrain. "I'm a businessman, not a monster. This place is a liability. Health hazard, structural danger, you could be seriously hurt. I'm managing." His laugh was short and sharp. "Managing? You sold timber rights for $10,000 last week. I checked county records. That money will last, what, 2 months? Then what?" The surveillance was worse than she'd thought. He wasn't just watching, he was tracking her financial transactions, building a complete picture. "I'll figure something out." Sterling stepped onto the porch testing boards before committing his weight. "You don't have to figure it out alone. I'm prepared to make you an offer. $25,000 cash today. You sign over the property, I'll even cover moving costs to Portland." She let silence stretch, pretending to consider. "Why would you want this place? You said it was worthless." "Sentimental value. Callum was family, whatever our differences." His smile was practiced, automatic. "I'd like to restore it as a family legacy, maybe turn it into a retreat." The lie was smooth, believable if you didn't know about the lithium or the ALMS server humming 15 feet below. "Number?" His smile faltered. "Excuse me, I said no. This was Garrett's favorite place. Uncle Callum left it to me. I'm not selling." Sterling's expression shifted, the mask sliding away to reveal something colder. "Delaney, be realistic. Property taxes on this land are $2,200 annually. Due in 4 weeks. Can you afford that? I'll manage." "With what money? You're broke. No job, no savings, a baby coming. The building inspector is scheduled next week. This place will be condemned. You'll be evicted while 9 months pregnant. Get off my property, Sterling." His face hardened, veins visible at his temples. "Fine. But when you're living in a shelter, when that baby is born in a county hospital because you can't afford anywhere else. Don't say I didn't warn you." He turned toward his vehicle, then paused. "Oh, and Delaney, I have friends in county government. If this place becomes a safety issue, they'll act quickly. Very quickly." He drove away without looking back. Delaney stood on the porch, shaking with adrenaline until his engine's sound faded completely. Fletcher emerged from the trees 30 seconds later, rifle slung over his shoulder. "How much did you hear?" "All of it. Been watching from that ridge since I saw him coming." Fletcher's expression was grim. "He threatened you with county inspection. That means he'll manufacture a violation if he can't find one." That night, she accessed the ALMS control panel and reduced processing speed to 10%. The company's logistics network slowed, further delays compounding into chaos. She monitored live news feeds, watching analysts dissect Ashford Industries' mysterious decline. Stock down 12% now. Board members demanding explanations. Sterling's face appeared on CNBC, promising the technical issues were temporary, under control, nothing to worry about. But behind his confident smile, she could see strain, slight tightness around his eyes, the way his jaw clenched between words. "Good." She composed an anonymous email from an encrypted account. "The system knows what you did. Tick-tock." 3 words. No signature. She hit send and watched it disappear. 20 minutes later, Sterling's phone rang. She could hear it through audio surveillance Callum had placed in Sterling's home office. His voice came through speakers, tight with barely controlled anger. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" A woman's voice, cool and professional. The IT department forwarded your inquiry. Mr. Ashford, we're investigating the anonymous message. It appears to have originated from an encrypted server, possibly overseas. Find them. I don't care what it costs. Let him waste resources chasing ghosts. The building inspector arrived November 14th, driving a county truck with official seals. He was young, nervous, carrying clipboard like a shield. Fletcher intercepted him at the property line. Help you with something? Building inspection. Got a complaint about structural integrity? The inspector's voice wavered. Need to examine the premises. You got a warrant. Don't need one for safety violations. County code section, I know the code. Fletcher's tone suggested this wasn't his first encounter with overzealous bureaucrats. You find any violations that aren't obvious from outside, you better have photographs and documentation, because I know the county supervisor and he doesn't appreciate false reports. The inspector walked the perimeter, taking pictures of the sagging roof, broken windows, collapsed porch corner. All visible, all documented, all things Delaney could point to as pre-existing conditions she was working to repair. He approached the door. Need to check interior structural supports. Delaney met him at the threshold, deliberately positioning herself so he couldn't see the rug covering the trapdoor. You can see the main beam from here. She pointed to the ceiling where a massive timber ran the cabin's length. Solid Douglas fir installed when this place was built in 1947. Check county records. The inspector craned his neck, made notes. What about the foundation? Poured concrete 18 inches thick. You want to see it, you'll need excavation equipment. She kept her voice polite, cooperative. I'm working on repairs as I can afford them. The roof is scheduled for replacement next month. That was a lie, but he had no way to verify. He circled the cabin one more time, clearly looking for something specific but unable to find it. Finally, he scribbled a notation and handed her a copy. You've got 60 days to address the roof and windows. If they're not repaired, we'll revisit the safety designation. After he left, Fletcher shook his head. Someone paid him to find violations. You got lucky, he's young and scared. That night, she escalated. The ALMS license renewal was now 1 day away, midnight, November 15th. She drafted an email to the Ashford Industries Board of Directors, anonymous but professional. Your CEO is operating critical infrastructure without valid licensing. ALMS software license expires November 15th at midnight. Renewal requires negotiation with new IP holder. Contact will be made when terms are established. She scheduled it to send at noon tomorrow, giving Sterling time to panic to make mistakes. The bunker's phone rang at 2 a.m. Delaney jerked awake, heart pounding. Caller ID showed unknown. She let it ring 4 times before answering. Silence on the other end. Just breathing. Hello? A mechanical voice, clearly disguised. You found something you weren't supposed to find. Who is this? Someone who knows what that cabin is worth. Someone who knows you're sitting on leverage you don't understand. The voice paused. You should sell. Take the money. Leave before something bad happens. Is this Sterling's idea of intimidation? The line went dead. Delaney sat in darkness, adrenaline making her hands shake. The threat was clear. They knew about the bunker or suspected it and wanted her gone. But knowing and proving were different things. As long as the bunker remained secret, as long as she maintained the facade, she had the advantage. She called Fletcher's number, knowing he kept odd hours. His voice was alert despite the late hour. What happened? Anonymous threat. Told me to sell and leave. They know something's here. You safe right now? Yes. But Fletcher, this is getting dangerous. His response was immediate. You want to run? I'll help you pack. You want to fight? I'll help you do that too. But you decide now, because it's only going to get worse. Delaney thought about Garrett's smile, about the baby moving inside her, about Sterling's face when he'd threatened her. I'm not running. Whatever comes next, I'm staying. Then we prepare. I'll be there at first light. Fletcher arrived with sunrise, bringing supplies, suggesting he'd been a soldier long before he was an engineer. Motion sensors, battery-powered, that could be hidden in trees. A better lock for the cabin door. A satellite phone with FBI field office programmed into speed dial. You put these sensors on the access road 30 yards out. Anyone coming you'll know before they arrive. He demonstrated the receiver, a small device that vibrated when triggered. Keep this on you at all times. They spent the morning setting up perimeter camouflaging sensors, testing range. Fletcher worked with military precision, checking angles, ensuring coverage. You expecting an assault? I'm expecting Sterling to make a move. When he does, it won't be legal, and it won't be gentle. That afternoon, Delaney's scheduled email hit the Ashford Industries board. Within an hour, Sterling's phone exploded with calls. The bunker's audio surveillance captured every conversation. "Sterling, what the hell is this about licensing?" The CFO's voice was sharp with panic. "We've been running ALMS on Callum's license for 35 years. You told us the IP belonged to the company." "It does. It has to. This is extortion." "From who?" The board chair's tone suggested exhausted patience. "Our stock is down 28% in 2 weeks. We're losing $15 million a day. And now someone claims we're operating illegally. I'll handle it." Sterling's confidence was cracking. "Give me 72 hours. You have 48. If this isn't resolved by license expiration, I'm calling an emergency board meeting to discuss your position." Delaney listened to Sterling's defeat and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Next morning, Sterling called her burner phone. She let it ring 6 times before answering. "Delaney, we need to talk. I thought I told you to leave me alone. This is about the ALMS system. Don't pretend you don't know." His voice was controlled, but she could hear strain underneath. "You found Callum's server setup. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just trying to survive in a cabin you called worthless. Don't play stupid. The license expires in 36 hours. You turn that system back on, or I will make sure you lose everything." "Threatening me again, Sterling." "Stating facts. You're broke, pregnant, squatting in a condemned building. 1 phone call and Child Protective Services investigates. Do you think they'll let you keep a baby in a place with no heat, no running water, no safe environment?" The threat hit harder than a fist. Her hand went to her belly, protective instinct flaring. "You wouldn't. Try me." His voice was ice. "Turn on the system. Drop whatever demands you think you have, or I will take that child the day it's born, and you will never see it again." She hung up, shaking with rage. Fletcher was on the porch within minutes, alerted by sensors. He took one look at her face and his expression hardened. "What did he say?" "He threatened to take my baby." Fletcher's jaw clenched. "That crosses the line. You need to call FBI now." "Not yet." She forced her breathing to steady. "If I call them now, Sterling claims it's a business dispute. He's got lawyers, money connections. But if he does something criminal, something undeniable, you're talking about letting him hang himself. I'm talking about giving him rope." Delaney met Fletcher's eyes. "He's desperate now. Desperate people make mistakes. I need him to make a mistake so big that even his money can't fix it. And if his mistake gets you hurt, gets that baby hurt, then I'll have evidence even his lawyers can't dismiss." She pulled out Callum's burner phone, the one with FBI agent Torres programmed in. "I'm ready to make the call, but not until he crosses the line completely." That night, Delaney made her final move before license expiration. She sent Sterling an encrypted email with specific demands: $5 million, 15% equity in Ashford Industries, public admission of safety violations that caused Garrett Brooks' death, Sterling Ashford's resignation as CEO, except by November 15th at noon, or ALMS license expires permanently. The response came within 20 minutes. No. Then an hour later, final offer, $2 million cash. You sign over all IP rights, no other terms. Accept or face consequences. Delaney typed her reply, "See you in court." At midnight on November 15th, the ALMS license expired. Delaney sat in the bunker watching system logs as authentication requests from Ashford Industries began failing. One by one, the company's logistics systems went dark. Ships stopped mid-route, unable to navigate. Trucks pulled over, routing software frozen. Warehouses locked down, unable to process orders. Ashford Industries ground to complete halt. Sterling's phone exploded with calls. Board CFO, operations director, all demanding answers. His voice on surveillance feed was strained, barely controlled. "It's a technical glitch. We're working on it." "No, I don't know when it'll be resolved." By dawn, stock had crashed 45%. Trade publications ran headlines about Mysterious Collapse of Ashford Industries. Analysts called it the most dramatic logistics failure in modern corporate history. And in a cabin in Oregon mountains, Delaney Brooks waited for Sterling's next move, knowing it would be desperate, knowing it would be illegal, knowing it would give her everything she needed to destroy him. The baby-kicked hard reminder of what she was fighting for. Just a little longer, she promised silently, just until he makes his final mistake. Sterling's descent into criminality began in the Bellevue Estates library 24 hours after ALMS died. Vivian stood by windows watching rain slash against glass, costing more per square foot than most people earned monthly. Her expression calculated, devoid of panic, consuming her husband. "The board meets tomorrow to vote on your removal." Her voice carried no sympathy, only tactical assessment. "They have the votes. Constance sided with them. She's furious about the stock collapse." Sterling paced between leather furniture that had been Ashford family property for 3 generations, furniture he'd lose if the board succeeded. His movements were sharp, agitated, decades of control finally fracturing. That cabin contains more than the server. Has to. Callum spent 30 years claiming it was worthless, but he built something underground. Surveillance confirmed foundation work, concrete poured late 90s. Why would he do that for a simple server room? Vivian turned from the window. "You think there's something else? The lithium surveys you found? If those deposits are real, we're talking 50 million minimum, enough to rebuild everything, start fresh without the board." He stopped pacing, face hardening into resolution. "We take the land. Force her out. She's one person, broke, pregnant, nowhere to go. Once we control the property, everything underground belongs to us." "How do you propose forcing her out?" "She has an accident. Tragic but plausible. Pregnant woman in unsafe cabin, falls, complications. We express condolences, offer to handle arrangements, file for property transfer based on next of kin rights." "You're talking about murder. I'm talking about survival." Sterling's voice dropped to something cold and final. "The company is gone. Our assets will be frozen in bankruptcy. But that land, if we own it before collapse, it's protected. It's our way out." Vivian studied him, weighing risks against rewards. Finally she nodded once, sharp and decisive. "It needs to be clean. Professional. Nothing traceable." Sterling already had a contact, someone who'd handled delicate situations through multiple layers of intermediaries. Arrangements were made with encrypted messages and cryptocurrency transfers that would take federal investigators months to unravel. 2 men experienced discreet instructions. Clear. Make it look accidental. Leave no evidence, complete the job tonight. Payment $150,000 each, untraceable. Delaney felt the first real contraction at 8 p.m. November 14th, a tightening across her lower back that stole her breath. The baby had dropped lower over the past week, pressing on nerves, sending shooting pains down her legs. She was in the bunker reviewing latest news about Ashford Industries when it hit, and had to grip the desk until the wave passed. False labor. Had to be. 3 weeks early was possible, but unlikely, and she'd had Braxton Hicks for days. She breathed through it, counting seconds until muscles relaxed. The motion sensors triggered at 9:15. Fletcher's receiver vibrated against her hip, showing 2 signals on the access road moving slowly, deliberately. Not Fletcher, he would have called. Not lost hikers. Sensors were positioned too far from any trail. Someone was coming. Delaney climbed stairs quickly despite her bulk, locked the trapdoor, positioned the rug with shaking hands. Another contraction hit as she reached the camp stove, stronger, radiating from spine through her entire torso. She braced against wall, breathing through clenched teeth. Not now. Please, not now. The receiver showed both signals, stopped 50 yards from cabin. Watching, waiting for full darkness. She grabbed the satellite phone, dialed Fletcher with trembling fingers. 2 people on access road. Unknown. I think I see them. Fletcher's voice was tight, controlled. I'm 300 yards northeast. Stay inside, lock the door, get low. If they breach, hit the panic button and run for the bunker. The baby, I'm having contractions. How far apart? 10 minutes. Maybe less. Christ. All right, listen. You lock that door, get to bunker entrance, and if anyone comes through who isn't me, you go down and seal it. Understand, Fletcher? Do you understand? Yes. The line went dead. Delaney locked the cabin door, testing Fletcher's new deadbolt. Solid commercial grade, but the door itself was old wood that wouldn't stop determined assault. Windows were broken, easily accessible. The cabin was a trap, not a fortress. Another contraction harder. She timed it 45 seconds of intensity, leaving her gasping. The baby was coming. Tonight, tomorrow, soon. Her water hadn't broken, but contractions were real, progressive, the kind meaning labor had begun. She pulled the rug aside, positioned herself over the trapdoor, one hand on the magnetic fob. If she had to run, she'd go down and seal the steel door, buy time for Fletcher or authorities. Motion sensors showed both signals moving again, splitting up. One circling east, one west. Flanking positions, professional tactics. Delaney pressed the panic button mounted under the table, a simple switch sending emergency signal directly to FBI Portland. No conversation required, just alert with GPS coordinates and pre-programmed message. Brooks, 1847 Timber Ridge, imminent threat. Response would take time. 40 minutes minimum, maybe an hour. She needed to survive until then. The first crash came from the eastern window glass shattering inward. A crowbar appeared through the opening, prying at frame, widening the gap. Delaney dropped through the trapdoor, pulling it shut above her as a second crash echoed from the western side. The steel door at the bottom sealed with a heavy thunk. She engaged interior locks, 3 deadbolts Fletcher had reinforced with military engineering expertise. The bunker was designed to withstand assault walls, reinforced concrete, 2 feet thick door, rated for blast resistance. She was safe, temporarily. Above, footsteps crossed the cabin floor. Heavy boots, 2 sets moving with tactical precision. Furniture scraped. The stove was knocked over, crashing against floorboards. Voices filtered through ceiling, muffled but audible. Nothing here. Just trash and camping gear. Boss said there's supposed to be something valuable. Check the floor. More footsteps concentrated over the trapdoor location. Delaney held her breath, one hand pressed against steel. Here. This rug's covering something. Sound of fabric ripping, the rug torn away. Silence, then one of them kneeling directly above her. What the hell is this? Some kind of hatch. Can you open it? No handle. Just smooth wood. Wait. There's a circular depression, like something fits. Delaney's heart hammered. They'd found the trapdoor, but without the magnetic fob they couldn't access it. The fob was in her pocket, the only key triggering hydraulic release. Try prying it up. Metal scraped against wood, crowbars working at the seam. The trapdoor was designed to resist solid steel core wrapped in wood veneer, anchored to concrete with 8-inch bolts. But nothing was impenetrable given enough time and force. Another contraction hit timing catastrophically wrong. Delaney bit her sleeve to muffle the gasp pain radiating through her pelvis, with intensity blurring her vision. The baby was definitely coming, stress accelerating labor, her body not caring about tactical situations or men with crowbars. A gunshot cracked through the night, muffled by distance and trees, but unmistakable. Then another. Fletcher. The men above froze. Footsteps rushed toward broken windows. Someone's shooting at us. We need to finish this, Boss said. No witnesses. If there's someone else out there. Another shot closer, followed by Fletcher's voice carrying through forest with parade ground authority. Sheriff's Department. Drop your weapons and show your hands. Fletcher wasn't law enforcement, hadn't been for 40 years, but his voice held enough command that the men hesitated. One swore viciously. This is blown. We're leaving. What about the job? The job's finished if we're dead or arrested. Move. Their footsteps pounded across the cabin floor, through broken windows, fading into forest. Engines started somewhere in distance, vehicles tearing away down the access road with reckless speed. Delaney waited in the silence that followed, counting heartbeats, listening for confirmation they were truly gone. Another contraction built stronger than previous ones, her body bearing down with involuntary force. Water broke with a warm rush, soaking through her jeans. Real labor. Active labor, the baby coming, whether she was ready or not. Fletcher's voice filtered through the floor. Delaney, they're gone. You can come up. She unsealed the door, climbed stairs with legs shaking from pain and adrenaline. Fletcher stood in the ruined cabin, rifle in hand, his face grim and pale in lantern light. How bad my water broke. Contractions 5 minutes apart. She leaned against wall as another hit, breathing through clenched teeth. The baby's coming tonight. Portland Hospital is 40 minutes. We leave now. Fletcher set down the rifle, moving to support her weight. Can you walk? I don't have a choice. The drive down the mountain was nightmare and mercy simultaneously. Fletcher's truck had better suspension than her Honda smoother despite rutted road, but every bump sent pain lancing through her pelvis. Contractions came every 4 minutes, then 3, her body accelerating toward delivery with mechanical inevitability. Fletcher drove with controlled urgency, one hand on wheel, the other holding his phone, coordinating with emergency services. They met an ambulance at the highway intersection, paramedics transferring Delaney to a gurney with professional efficiency. The baby's crowning. We need to move now. The world became sirens and fluorescent lights and medical professionals speaking in calm, urgent tones. Portland Hospital emergency entrance, wheelchair to delivery room. Nurses stripping wet clothing while monitoring equipment beeped urgent warnings. Placental abruption. We need to deliver immediately. Delaney understood enough to know danger. Placenta tearing from uterine wall, cutting oxygen to baby bleeding that could kill them both. The attack had triggered more than labor, it had created medical crisis. Emergency C-section. Prep OR2. She wanted to protest, but another contraction stole her voice and the decision was already made. Hands lifted her onto surgical table. An anesthesiologist appeared with needles and reassuring words barely penetrating fear. Count backward from 10. 10. 9. 8. Consciousness fractured into darkness. She woke in recovery to fluorescent lights and quiet beeping. Her abdomen ached with surgical precision pain different from contractions more focused and sharp. A nurse moved into her field of vision, smiling with professional warmth. You're awake. Good. Your baby's in NICU for observation, but he's healthy. 6 pounds, 2 ounces, strong lungs, all the right parts in the right places. He, a boy. She'd been afraid to imagine gender, afraid to build expectations when so much could go wrong. Can I see him? In a little while. Doctor wants to make sure you're stable first. The nurse adjusted an IV drip. You had significant blood loss. We transfused 2 units. But you're going to be fine. What time is it? 3 a.m. November 15th. The ALMS license had expired 27 hours ago. Sterling's company was dead and he'd sent men to kill her rather than negotiate. They brought the baby an hour later, tiny human wrapped in hospital blankets, his face red and scrunched but perfect. Delaney held him with arms trembling from weakness and wonder, counting fingers and toes, checking details, confirming reality. He had Garrett's nose, the same slight upturn at the tip she'd loved kissing. Welcome to the world, Callum. She whispered it against his forehead, tears falling onto blanket. Your great-uncle saved us, and your daddy would be so proud. The baby made a small noise between sigh and complaint, and Delaney felt her heart crack open with love so intense it hurt worse than the incision. FBI agent Lisa Torres arrived at dawn, showing credentials to hospital security before entering Delaney's room. She was tall, 40-something, with observant eyes, missing nothing. She studied Delaney and the baby for a long moment before speaking. Mrs. Brooks, I'm responding to the panic signal from your property. Can you tell me what happened? Delaney told her everything. The inheritance, the bunker evidence files, Sterling's threats, the attack. Torres listened without interrupting, taking notes on a tablet, her expression growing darker with each revelation. You have proof of these allegations in the bunker, computers, server records, audio surveillance. She shifted the baby to her other arm, wincing at the pull on her incision. Callum Ashford documented everything for 30 years. Tax evasion, bribery, safety violations that killed my husband. And now attempted murder. Torres stood, pocketing the tablet. I'm going to need access to that bunker. And I'm placing you under protective custody, hospital security, supplemented by federal agents until we determine threat level. She moved toward the door, then paused. Mrs. Brooks, if half of what you've told me is verifiable, Sterling Ashford is looking at significant federal charges. I want him to pay for Garrett. Not just the attack, for my husband's death. Torres's expression softened slightly. We'll do everything we can, but prepare for a long legal process. Men with Sterling Ashford's resources don't go down easy. The investigation moved with methodical speed. Torres led FBI agents to the cabin, documenting the break-in, collecting evidence from the bunker, securing servers containing Callum's organized files. The two attackers were identified through tire tracks and gas station surveillance, arrested at an Eugene motel within 18 hours. Both men accepted plea deals immediately, providing testimony tracing money directly to Sterling through 3 layers of cryptocurrency and shell companies. The evidence was damning, incontrovertible, the kind federal prosecutors built careers on. Sterling was arrested at the Bellevue estate November 19th. News footage showed him in handcuffs being led to an unmarked sedan while cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions. Vivian was arrested simultaneously, charged as accessory. Constance claimed ignorance and hired attorneys, immediately distancing her from conspiracy. Fletcher visited Delaney in the hospital November 21st, bringing flowers and profound relief. "You're tougher than Callum ever imagined." He settled into the visitor's chair, watching baby Callum sleep in bassinet. "I underestimated you too. You saved our lives. If you hadn't been watching, I made a promise to Callum. There's something you need to understand about your uncle-in-law and me." Fletcher's expression shifted, old memories surfacing. "We built that bunker together. Took us 3 years, working nights and weekends. We dug the foundation by hand, poured concrete ourselves, installed every piece of equipment. Why, Callum's father was a hard man. Believed in appearances over substance, profit over people. Destroyed anyone who got in his way, including family members disagreeing with business decisions. When Callum developed ALMS, his father tried to take it, claim it was company property. Callum refused. Kept the IP separate, licensed it instead of selling. His father never forgave that independence." Fletcher's voice carried weight of old battles. The bunker was insurance. Callum knew someday someone in the family would try to take what was his. He built that facility as a fortress, a repository for evidence, a place to fight back from. He just didn't know who the enemy would be or when they'd come. "Why leave it to me?" "Because you asked him if he had regrets." Fletcher's eyes were steady, certain. "At Garrett's funeral, while everyone else networked and calculated inheritance, you sat with an old man and asked about his life. You saw him as human, not as an asset. That's why he changed his will. You were the only person he trusted to use his weapons without becoming the monster." 6 months later, the criminal trial proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Sterling's attorneys tried every delaying tactic, but evidence was too strong. Witnesses too credible. The jury too horrified by recordings of him ordering an attack on a pregnant woman. The verdict came May 7th, a warm Tuesday morning. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, conspiracy, criminally negligent homicide, bribery of public officials. The courtroom was packed. Delaney attended, holding 6-month-old Callum, his eyes beginning to focus and track movement. When the judge asked if she wanted to make a victim impact statement, she stood. "You killed my husband because $400,000 mattered more to you than his life. You tried to kill me and my baby because losing your company mattered more than basic human decency." Her voice was steady, clear, carrying to every corner of the courtroom. "But here's what you never understood. The strongest foundations aren't built on money or power. They're built by people who care about something bigger than themselves. Garrett cared about doing good work. Callum cared about justice. Fletcher cared about keeping promises. And I care about making sure no other family suffers what we suffered. You're going to prison. I'm going to raise our son. And every day for the rest of your life you'll know that what you built on lies was torn down by someone you thought was worthless." Sterling's face was stone, revealing nothing. But his hands gripped the defense table hard enough that his knuckles went white. The judge sentenced him to 12 years federal prison, no possibility of parole before 8. Vivian received 5 years for her role as accessory in fraud related to safety inspection falsifications. In parallel with criminal proceedings, civil matters resolved more quickly. Ashford Industries' new interim CEO, Robert Finch, a board member for 15 years, reached out in February with settlement offer. The negotiation took place in a federal courthouse conference room. Finch addressed Delaney directly through video link, baby Callum visible in her arms. "Mrs. Brooks, on behalf of Ashford Industries, I apologize for actions leading to your husband's death and the recent attack. Sterling Ashford acted alone without board knowledge, and his behavior doesn't reflect values this company should represent. We're prepared to offer substantial settlement, $8 million immediate payment, Annual licensing fee of $250,000 for ALMS usage, 15% equity in the reformed company, and $3 million allocated to establishing a worker safety foundation in Garrett's name. Additionally, we'll rename the company. Not Ashford Industries. We propose Brooks Industrial Solutions. Delaney's court-appointed attorney, Sarah Chen, had reviewed every detail of the offer. This is more than fair. It's exceptional. I accept. On one condition. Delaney's voice was firm. Every piece of equipment gets inspected by independent contractors within 60 days, and Sterling's name gets removed from every building, every document, every piece of company history. Finch nodded. Already underway as part of regulatory compliance. We accept your terms. The lithium discovery became public in March. Portland Battery Corp approached with a lease offer, $8 million upfront, $600,000 annually for 10 years with options to extend. Chen reviewed the contract exhaustively. This is legitimate. Top dollar because ore quality is exceptional and location is accessible. Delaney sat in the cabin, restored now, with new roof, functional windows, a porch that didn't sag, and considered the offer. Baby Callum slept in a cradle Fletcher had built, hand-carved from cedar, more art than furniture. Fletcher, who'd been in the kitchen teaching himself bread-making, spoke without turning. Callum bought this land because it was isolated, somewhere he could think clearly. He loved these trees, this silence, used to say it was the only place he felt like himself. What would he want me to do? Fletcher turned, flour dusting his hands. He'd want you to decide based on what matters to you, not what he would have chosen. His gift was the choice, not the answer. She called Chen next morning with her decision. Accept the lease, but with conditions: underground mining only, no clear-cutting, no road expansion beyond equipment access. They restore surface damage within 2 years of completing extraction. And they hire locally, preference to unemployed industrial workers from Brooks Industrial Solutions layoffs. The money secured her son's future. But the cabin, the forest, the quiet that gave him roots, both mattered. Both were gifts she'd earned by refusing to be anything less than who she was, a woman who saw people instead of portfolios, who chose justice over revenge, who built her life on bedrock instead of sand. Sterling could rot in federal prison knowing he'd lost everything to someone he'd dismissed as worthless. And Delaney would raise Callum in the home his great-uncle had built as a fortress, but which had become something better. A place where broken things could heal, where darkness gave way to light, where the strength to survive transformed into courage to live. On a warm June evening, she sat on the restored porch holding baby Callum, watching sunset paint Oregon valleys in gold and purple. Fletcher was inside preparing dinner, the smell of fresh bread drifting through open windows. The baby made a small noise and she looked down at his face. Garrett's nose, her eyes, Callum's determined expression. Your great-uncle once told me the foundation is stronger than the walls. She whispered it against his soft hair. He was right. But what he didn't say is that the strongest foundations aren't made of concrete and steel. They're made of love, of sacrifice, of people who refuse to give up when everything seems lost. The baby's hand wrapped around her finger with surprising strength. We won, little one, not because we were powerful, but because we had something worth fighting for. In the distance, a raven called, not lonely this time, but triumphant. Asterisk.